Welcome to Swala Nyeti, the law podcast that pairs a layman and a lawyer to answer your legal questions of the day. Swala Nyeti is sponsored by the law firm of Kigwata and Company Advocates and is intended for educational purposes only.
Good morning and welcome to Swala Nyeti. As we had promised, it's the layman versus many lawyers, and today I am joined by Wangui Waihura, a family lawyer. Wangui, how are you?
Thanks so much for having me. I am a lawyer working with the firm of Kigwata and Company Advocates. I specialize in family law, and that's everything from adoptions to custody and maintenance, succession, divorce, matrimonial property, and matrimonial disputes. And I'm very happy to be here.
On Toto Tuesday, we'll be discussing issues of child custody, and we have a few questions. Question number 1. My baby mama left the country with our child together, and now she says she's not coming back. How can I see my child?
The first thing to note is that children have a right to parental care and protection, and that is a right that is recognized the world over, and it's a right to parental care and protection by both parents. And on the other hand, parents also have a right to care for and access their children. So you are very justified in wanting to see your child, and the law is on your side. However, a thing to note is jurisdictional issues. Jurisdiction means quite basically the limits of power. So in much the same way that in your own house you can dictate what your children eat and watch, and you can't dictate what happens in your neighbor's house, courts work the same way. In our own country, the courts here, they have what is referred to as quasi-parental jurisdiction or quasi-parental powers. That's why if a child is being abused even by their own parents, the courts can take them away. The courts can protect children even against their own parents. And so the courts in Kenya don't have jurisdiction over children in another country, regardless of nationality. So your best bet would be to travel to that country where your child is and seek the court's help on the other side, because just as I explained, the courts here can't dictate what is to happen in someone else's house, in courts, in someone else's country. So my advice to you would be to actually travel to that other country and seek the court's help.
Question number 2. My ex-wife has been disobeying the unlimited access order of my child. Will the court compensate me for the lost time?
So when someone disobeys court orders, you can seek an order against them for contempt of court. Contempt means disregard. Like the court has told them to do something, they've just decided they don't feel like doing it, they don't want to do it. It's really very disrespectful to the court, and you can bring that to the attention of the court, and the court does not take that kindly. And then once you do that, so you can either seek contempt orders, or, and this is perhaps what I would advise, you just put it as a ground. You go back to court and say, you had given me X amount of time with the child. This person has refused to give me X amount of time. And so on the grounds that she is in contempt of court, on the grounds that she has disregarded the orders of the court, you'd seek going forward that the court gives you more time with the child. So perhaps if you are getting access every other weekend, you can now say, I don't see my child often enough. Even the every other weekend that you give me, she's refused. So can I now have every weekend? So you might be able to use that disobedience of court orders to your advantage in that way. However, access to children is not really a mathematical calculation. It's not you are supposed to have them for 2 weeks, so you didn't. So in the future, I needed 2 weeks, I still have my 2 weeks, so it'll be 4 weeks. And it's not really a mathematical calculation. It all comes down to the best interest of the child, and it is in the best interest of the child to spend time with both parents. So if you're supposed to have them for 3 months and then you didn't, the court might not give you now in the coming 6 months, because the child also needs to spend time with their mother. So it's not really a mathematical calculation in that way, but you might be able to get more time going forward.
Question number 3. My child's father is from Saudi Arabia, and that's where he was born. But we now live in Kenya. If I divorce him, can I keep the child here?
Okay, when it comes to children, the court that has jurisdiction basically means the limits of power. The courts that have jurisdiction over a child are the courts where the child is. So if the child is in Kenya, the courts in Kenya are the ones that have jurisdiction over that child. Now, it doesn't matter what nationality the child is, where they come from, where they have lived. As long as they're in Kenya, the courts in Kenya have jurisdiction over that child. And also, parental custody is not tied to divorce or separation. So that's really a non-issue. So you might be able to keep the child here. That would be something that you'd have a parental responsibility agreement with the child's father, where you want them to stay, how often the father can see them, are they ever going to travel to Saudi Arabia, those modalities. If you're able to agree, that would be best. Put in a parental responsibility agreement. If you're not able to agree, you'd have to go to court and have that discussed in court. What would be favoring you is that if the child travels outside the jurisdiction of the court can't really control whether they come back or not. The court can't make an order to have them brought from another country. So you'd be asking the court to keep the child within the limits of its jurisdiction, which is in Kenya. So that's something you can ask the court to do. But the court will act in the best interest of the child in as far as they see fit. So the best thing for you to do would be try to agree on a situation that works for both of you.
Question number 4. How do I make sure that any parental responsibility agreement we have in Kenya will apply if she moves with the baby to the US?
Parental responsibility agreements are a great way to govern the relationship between parents and their children, and between parents themselves, especially when they're not living together. And in this case, it would be imperative, to be very important, for you to put certain specific things in the parental responsibility agreement to enable it to have effect even in a different country. So the first thing that is on your side is that a parental responsibility agreement is a contract. And contracts are agreements between two people, and therefore they are recognizable wherever you are. But specifically, you need to put that in, that the intention of the contract is to be legally binding, because sometimes people make agreements but they don't anticipate that they'll be bound by them. So you need to put that in very clearly, that both parties intend to be legally bound. The second thing is to say that both parties intend that the contract have application regardless of where the parents or the children are. You intend the contract to have international application, and it would be important at this point to put the governing law of the contract not to tie it to the law of any particular country. So in this case, the United States and Kenya have both signed an international convention. It's called the International Convention on Civil Aspects of Child Abduction, and it deals with parental abduction. That's a good law to have govern your contract. The third thing is that you can have the contract, once you sign it in Kenya, adopted as an order of the court. And once it's adopted as an order of the court, you can then have it mirrored as an order in another court. The US, it might be a bit difficult because of the different states, but that's also an option that's available to you.
And question number 5. I am willing to pay school fees, but only for the school of my choice. How can I enforce this?
The choice of school for a child is a big decision, and by law, both parents have a duty of parental care and protection. This necessarily means that both parents have a right to be involved in making decisions, especially big decisions such as choice of school. So a court would be hard-pressed for that reason to lock one parent out of that decision. It would also be difficult for you to put that in a parental responsibility agreement because it limits the constitutional rights of the other parent. So even if you try to get that in there, it might be difficult to enforce. However, you could try, but my advice would be try and agree on the choice of school. If you're not able to agree and you have to now go to court, you would have to demonstrate that the school you want them to go to is in their best interests and that you are willing to mitigate any negative factors. For example, perhaps the school you want them to go to is better, they've been performing well, such and such, but it's far. So, and the other parent wants them to go to still an okay school, but it's within walking distance. So you who wants them to go to a school that is far, are you going to pay school transport? Are you going to take care of any travel expenses that they have? Are you going to get them a driver? Things like that. You'd have to demonstrate. It would come down to what is best for the children. Is school A better for whatever reason than school B?
Thank you very much, Wangui Waihura, the family lawyer, for answering the questions today.
It was such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
We hope we can have you again in our show. And until next time, from us at Swala Nyeti to you, our listeners, Have yourself a lovely day. Goodbye.
You have been listening to Swala Nyeti. If you have a legal question that you want answered, send us a WhatsApp message on 0708 111 222 or email us at admin@swalanyeti.org. You can find downloads to all our podcast episodes on our website www.swalanyeti.org.